Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I'll never forget the single moment when I realized that my life, my identity, the way that I perceived it, the way that I perceived myself, it ended. And for reasons at the time thought to be beyond my control. But this moment, I was standing on the edge of a dock in Venice, Italia, and I was waiting for a water taxi to take me to the storied arena, Giuseppe Taliercio, and I would compete in what was my final game as a professional basketball player. But the moment itself, it occurred for me at the edge of the dock. And I'm looking downward into dark and murky waters, and I'm confronted by this thought. Bianca, if you take one step forward, you will end at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. My life, my identity, as I perceived it, as I perceived myself, was one step away from the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. And that was a very dark space, a scary space for me to be in. I was feeling alone, despite the fact that what I was feeling is very much common. And I didn't realize that then. But so much common, or so very much common, and it resonates, it's relatable. Because all of us, we go into that private space where there's inner dialogue. We all go into this private space when we're feeling stressed, or pressured, or exhausted. We go into the space and we tell ourselves, I've got to figure this out on my own. This is my problem to fix. We go into the space when we experience hurt and pain and injury. And we go there to attack our insecurities, and we tell ourselves, we will never be enough. We will never possess enough, because we link possession with status, with power. And then we're binary thinkers, so of course if we feel we're falling short from possession, from status, from power, then we must lack in our self-value. Our lives don't matter. Life doesn't matter. And we have the false belief that we are powerless and therefore hopeless. This is so common, in fact, that in 2023, the Centers for Disease Control reports that 1 in 6 high-achieving individuals, performers in sports, performers in music, in arts, in entertainment, performers in academia, in the workforce, in the family systems, in the community, 1 in 6 high-achieving individuals and performers will experience a mental health crisis in any given year. 1 in 5 is the statistic for adults in the general population, and 1 in 4 for young people. But they'll experience a mental health crisis that's characterized by being just one step from their single moment. Characterized by being willing to die, to experience relief from hurt, from pain, from injury. Characterized by a 40% increase in drug overdose deaths from April of 2022 to April of 2023. A mental health crisis that's characterized by the adverse childhood experience of 300,000 students who have been exposed to gun violence and school shootings since Columbine in 1999. 1 in 6, 1 in 5, 1 in 4. And in my expert opinion, I say not one more. Now, in my 25 years in practice, 12 of those as a healthcare CEO, some of those years as a board reviewer for child deaths, and also a reviewer for the American Association of Suicidology, certified to do psychological autopsies, I've learned some things. I've discovered that mental health challenges aren't causes of death. I've discovered that substance use, misuse, abuse, and addiction histories are not causes of death. I've discovered that guns don't kill people. I've discovered that silence is the culprit, that silence is the cause, and that silence kills people. And what silence is, where it originates, is in that private space that each and every one of us go to. The self-destructive self-talk is what ignites and instigates silence. And silence is shifty. Silence can manifest into two words: I'm fine. And if I had $1 for every time one of us has responded to, hey, how are you doing, with I'm fine, I'd be OWW. That's Oprah Winfrey Wealthy. I'm fine is not an invitation to exit stage left as fast as you can to avoid a very uncomfortable and sometimes tough conversation. I'm fine is an invitation to, by any means necessary, continue the courageous conversation. A courageous conversation is one in which we aim to acknowledge the true thoughts, perceptions that shape our identities, and our identities are our lives, right? This is still true today, that my life is my identity. My identity is shaped by my perception. My perception is what I see every time I look into the mirror. And that inner dialogue, it defines for me who I am and what I am in relationship to the world. So as a licensed clinician, people come up to me often and they ask me, Bianca, how do I respond? How do I engage someone that's experiencing a mental health crisis, showing signs, it's experiencing those symptoms? And what I tell them is, champs are going to champs talk. And champs talk, what it is, it's breaking the silence. It's a method to break the silence. We have to meet people where they are, and in these conversations, meet them with compassion. C for compassion. We have to meet them with humility. And humility is this concept that we think we have, but we don't. Humility requires us setting aside our own agenda. And again, the objective is to acknowledge the perceptions. It's to become aware of where we are on the continuum of mental health. Mental fitness is a trending term where everybody says, yes, mental fitness, this is the place to go for mental fitness. The language is great. It's aligned with my sports background. But if you go to each of these agents for mental fitness and you ask them, well, what is mental fitness? Very few, far and few between, will you get an actual formula or definition of what mental fitness is. And I'm here to share with you that mental fitness is a commitment to establishing a regimen, right? We can wrap our minds around the sense that in order to be physically fit, we have to have daily activities. We have to engage in a daily activity or regimen that supports our physical health and fitness, nutrition, exercise. It's the same for our mental health. And mental fitness is what do we engage in on a daily basis that's supporting our mental health. It's not what do we engage in when we're at a point of crisis, because how many of us recognize when we are in crisis? Most of us don't recognize we're in crisis until it's become unmanageable, because we've been in that private space saying, I've got to figure this out on my own. This is my problem to fix. Mental fitness is becoming aware of where we are in each of the stages of the mental health continuum. We all go into this private space, no matter where we are on the continuum, whether we're performing well and in wellness. Whether we are performing well enough, but we're coping with something. Whether we're maybe challenged with something on the mental health continuum. And from challenge, maybe we're struggling. Maybe we're unwell. In latter stage, maybe we're suffering. Mental fitness is being able to identify where we are in any given moment. Acknowledging and honoring that position. And honoring it by identifying and activating supports to help us manage our wellness and avoid a crisis situation. That's mental fitness. It's developing the muscle memory of being able to have positive communication throughout the continuum. Positive communication and conversations that are not self-destructive. Positive conversations that are met with compassion, that have humility. The humility to understand that we all have unique lived experiences, to honor those, to seek understanding in those conversations. A is acknowledgement. Acknowledging that within ourselves, we have implicit bias. That there are factors to which I am not good to help somebody else in crisis if I do not have the positive self-communication, or if I am not healed myself. It's for challenging the meaning that we have behind our lived experiences. The meaning from which what was told to us versus the story that we tell ourselves. There's wealth in the ability and the willingness to share our own stories. And there's power in being able to rewrite those stories. If only these walls could talk. If only these walls could talk, what would they say? How would the story of the human condition change? Especially when change is necessary, disruption is necessary. If only these walls can talk and assist us in shifting perspective and establishing supports and avoiding that private space where isolation turns that silence into violence against ourselves and against others. Champs are going to champs talk. Now, my self-talk has not always been positive. And on that day, I'm standing on the dock and I'm looking down at the dark and the murky waters, my life and my identity as I perceived it, as I perceived myself. It ended. But through Champs Talk, that's breaking down the silence, that's breaking down the walls, and embracing the process of transformation, that an end to one life and one identity is an opportunity for transformation into a champion of ourselves. Thank you.